And we're back after a brief break. You're watching South Texas Crossfire. Let's not forget our sponsors, Vasquez Flores Home Health, 881-9922. Nursing homes have their place, but nothing like being in your own home if you can help it. Call Priscilla Vasquez today, backed by 20 years of experience as an RN, 881-9922. She can evaluate to see if your loved ones can stay at home. And also, want to thank Education is Our Freedom. If you want to get back to school, you get a GED and you go to college, think about it. 960-6312 is one of the magic numbers among others. 960-6312 to learn more, but you have to actually go in and fill out an application. I mean, you got to work for it. Ganas. Okay, but here we are, and let's not spare any expense. I brought in the big guns. And also, we just finished with the beautiful Maria Martinez, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and Tony along with her. So we're bringing in District Attorney MArk Skurka and our Commissioner 24/7, Joe A. Gonzalez. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you?
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, let's lead in, because the viewers just saw Big Brothers, Big Sisters. How important is it for mentoring to prevent people from going to the pokey? You, a former police officer, a leader with children, and you, district attorney for years. How important is it, Mark?
Well, I don't want children to end up in my system. I don't want children to end up in front of a judge, a jury, or a prosecutor in the courtroom. To stop that from happening, they need to be intervened with at an early age. Big Brothers and Big Sisters, a great performance, a great program that can help these children get on the right track. I have 2 prosecutors assigned to the Juvenile Justice Center, and that whole key over there is rehabilitation. They reach out to the families. They work more intensively with the families so those kids don't go back. People think prosecutors are only there to put people in jail. That's not true.
Not true.
Prosecutors are there to put people in jail that need to go to jail, but there's also a lot of programs that we have for these people who are first-time offenders and young kids. And our juvenile probation department does a great job at help steering them into good programs to help them change their lives. I think Big Brothers Big Sisters is a great example of a program that kids can go in to help change their lives.
And you, as a judge, a policeman, and I see you're wearing that because Police Officer Association, thank you for serving, Commissioner Gonzalez. Your experience with children and Big Brothers, Big Sisters.
Well, I've always been a supporter of Big Brothers, Big Sisters. I used to be on the board when it first started. And
isn't there anything that I can do that you haven't already done, man? I hate competing with this guy.
I mean, I'm glad you follow my footsteps, Joe.
I'm trying. Well, they're big shoes to fill.
Yeah. But anyway, the thing is, Joe, like Mark said, it's about helping, it's about rehab, it's about getting back into the right track. And although the juvenile justice system is there to help these young men or women, ladies, the young kids, I think the justice of the peace, we forget one thing, that's the first line of defense. We need dedicated judges that are willing to get out of the box and willing to go out and do the extra things. Because when they first meet the juvenile system, it's a JP level. It's not at the county court number 5.
Truancy, right?
It's a truancy. And a lot of these kids that you have in the Big Brothers Sisters probably have experienced some kind of truancy, or maybe and those that haven't, we don't want them to. And this is why it's so important to have a big brother, a big sister, a mentor, what do you want to call them. It's good to have them because we need them. We need like the prisons are full. Well, so are the juvenile justice facilities are full.
Man.
And we don't need no more. It's like, and also like Mark, I support Mark when he's saying prosecutors are there to help those that want the help. The ones that go to jail because they don't want any help, or they did something that deserve to go to jail. But there are some that make a bad choice. There's some that first-time offenders. They know that hopefully we don't want them to be a second-time offenders. So this is why it's important to have programs like Big Brother, Big Sister. This is why it's important to have a program like Education is Our Freedom, GED Scholarship Program, because we're giving them a second chance to try to do the right thing, second chance to get education, second chance to try to be productive members of society, and a second chance to be somebody in their life. So this is why it's so important. We need to reach out to that population.
Well, Big Brothers and Big Sisters is kind of working with you guys a little bit because they may go ahead and funnel kids that can get a GED.
Sure.
And plus, in Mark's department, I've never seen a prosecutor say, God, I just want to lock up some people today. And I have been a defense attorney too in the juvenile and the adult system. There are a lot of programs, as you said, and if they can funnel people your way, but Mark, isn't it true that the prosecutors also, I've never seen a court order that or seldom, that doesn't say get your GED.
Sure, that's one of the requirements if they go on probation or something like that, because the judges recognize that and prosecutors recognize it. Education is the key, and your folks that were on here a little earlier, Tony and Maria, hit that pretty hard. Your family and education is key. Whatever they need to get back into the groove, to get back in that learning experience, is helpful to me, you, and all of our community.
Well,
And I've had some prosecutors call me, and probation officers call me after they've gone to court, and they said, the judge told me to call you, Commissioner JAG, because they understand you have a GED program, and they want these people to go get their GED. Can you help them? And I say, hey, send them up to my office. I'll sit down and talk to them, and I'll guide them in the right direction, and tell them where to go, and not only that, but anybody that gets their GED, we guarantee them a 2-year scholarship to start off with. You get your GED, we guarantee you a 2-year scholarship to go to Delmar, A&MCC, or Tennessee.
Paid college.
Paid college, and those universities are our partners now, and they match those funds the second semester. And if we have some that finish Delmar in 2 years, 2.5 years, and then they go to A&M, and we still pick them up for another 2 years, because we want them to continue to succeed. The more higher education they're going to get, the better they're going to make it in this society. And they're going to be hired by all these big companies that come into Nueces County. We've got a lot of big companies coming into Nueces County. In the next 10 years, there's going to be over 3,000 jobs, and maybe more.
If they qualify, like if they learn craft center, not everybody has to be a nuclear physicist.
Right.
I mean, we're going to need welders for platforms. We're going to
fitters,
need pipe
welders,
fitters,
engineers, electricians. You got crane operators, all these things here. But the main thing you got to be, Joe, and we forget, is drug free.
and the drug-free programs and the DA offer that make them go.
We have a few of them involved in that, and that's one of the deals in our pretrial diversion program. For example, if you're a young kid that made a mistake and did a lower class misdemeanor, you have a chance to wipe that off your record if you complete certain programs. Generally, those programs include getting your GED, finishing your education, and remaining drug-free. And the commissioners are correct. We can educate people all we want to, but that also includes they have to do something on their own, and that's to stay drug-free.
And I'm not going to pick on any particular prosecutors in the state of Texas, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not just saying this, that here and in this area, Jim Wells County and other areas, my stomping grounds, we have compassionate DAs. I'm not saying that there aren't any, but up north in Texas, other parts, pretrial diversion is the exception, not the rule. You guys liberally try to see if they qualify for deferred and pretrial diversion.
When I took office in 2010, Joe, I thought there was a need for that because people were worried about 17-year-olds getting saddled with a criminal record that would follow them the rest of their life.
Sure.
I was 17 once too. I've had friends get in trouble before. And my question is, can we do something to help those people to get that program or that crime erased from them? So I set up a pretrial diversion program. I talked to some other jurisdictions that had it. I had meetings with judges and defense lawyers, and we kind of, in the probation department, and we came together and had some criteria. Not everybody's going to qualify. If you do a sexual offense or an aggravated assault, you're not going to qualify for that. But those lower level misdemeanor cases where somebody did something and screwed up, you have a chance to get that off your record. You still have to follow some probation for 6 months and do some pretty easy things like community service, getting your GED, staying drug-free. But if you do that through my program, which our prosecutors recommend every day in our courtrooms, you can get out of there without having a criminal record.
You can always lead them. I mean, it's easy. The part of leading them to water it's our
Right.
it's our work, and it's easy. For them to make the right choices, it's a little tougher.
It's hard because, I've had clients on pretrial diversion that have blown it. You gave them the chance, and we had them go to the program. When they're 19, they're just not realizing the important break that they're getting, and then they blow it, and then and it's a shame.
It's a shame, but it's like the commissioner says. There's programs out there if you want to take advantage of it, but I cannot change a person's behavior. Only that person can change that behavior.
And the behavior that we're also talking about, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, programs like that, everything y'all are reaching out to, education, it all dovetails into not just substance abuse, domestic violence where women are in a relationship and in a vicious cycle that they're not getting out of. And that's the other thing that we wanted to talk about today. What are the initiatives that are coming forward? And I know, and I brought Judge and Commissioner JAG on because he was a former police officer and knew the frustration of a woman filing a report, then dropping the charge.
Joe, that's the biggest challenge the DA's office and the police departments have right now. What happens in a typical scenario is a woman will call the police, report their spouse, their boyfriend, a friend, close friend of physical abuse. They'll call the police will come take a report, they'll gather the information, they'll take statements, they'll get pictures, and then the police department will take that and follow it with my office. Our prosecutors will review the case, decide whether or not to file the case, and set it for court, trial. Then what happens can be a variety of things. Sometimes the lady doesn't want to cooperate with the police department and never answers her phone calls or comes in and gives a statement. Some don't do any follow-up with our victim services people. And then ultimately some people just don't show up for court. They say, I don't want to go to court, I don't want this in my life, which frees the offender to keep doing it over and over again to either that person or another person. The biggest challenge we have as prosecutors is getting these people to show up to court and cooperating with law enforcement. To that end, the district attorney's office, I went to a domestic violence seminar last year with the Texas Council on Family Violence, and through them I was able to obtain a grant from the governor's office for about $73,000 to buy body cameras for officers here in Nueces County. With the help of my friends on the Commissioner's Court and Judge Neal,
there you go.
they approved this grant, and there was no matching funds. The county didn't have to pay anything, but it had to go through the county. But with that, I was able to purchase 78 cameras for the Corpus Christi Police Department.
Way to go, Commissioner.
Yeah. Well, it's worth it. I mean, what Mark was saying, it's something that was way overdue. You know, the police officers as a police officer for 10 years.
Yeah, talk about when you did it.
You know, what my biggest frustration was when I made a house call, domestic violence house call. You know, everybody wants to follow that person. Everybody, regardless whether you're male or female, doesn't make any difference. You know, they're all angry. They want to follow them. They've been abused. They've been, beaten up, whatever you want to call it. And, and my biggest frustration was 2 weeks later, here comes the victim saying, well, it really was my fault. I don't really want to.
Or I want to drop the charges.
I don't want to do anything about it no more. That was my biggest frustration because you go through a lot of things to get ready for that case. And then it's not just a one-day thing or overnight thing, but you have to work on the case. And you have to get the case ready. And you work with district attorney's office, and they get ready. And then for the victim to say, "Well, I want to drop it," or it was really blaming themselves, for what happened. But this domestic violence is a learned behavior. It's a learned behavior by the person that commits that violence. Because they grew up in that type of environment. They saw it every night. They saw it every Friday night or every Saturday night when the father, the husband, or whatever, they came home drunk and started to beat on the mother, the father. All these things. It's learned behavior that they think it's okay to do it. It's okay to accept it.
We call that the cycle of violence, Joe. And I don't think things have changed that much since he was a police officer.
I don't think so.
The frustration is still there. And that cycle of violence, the women get into that violence and they think, I guess it's okay because my mom got beat up before and my grandma got beat before, so this is what husbands do. And the perpetrators feel the same way. Their dad, their uncles beat up their spouses and they think that's okay. Well, the police department does their best to try to interfere with that and stop that by arresting the perpetrator, and the DA's office tries to do their best by following the cases, but sometimes we need the victims to cooperate and the witnesses to cooperate. This would be a way with these body cameras. It'd be a camera attached to the police officer's uniform that's very nondescript. You can't even tell it's there. He can film that person right there at the instant when the police officer's interviewing him. What happened, Mrs. Jones? And see any physical injuries, bruises, any kind of red marks, their state of mind. So when that person comes in and goes, it didn't happen, I want to drop charges, we have that video that we can show to the judge or jury in certain circumstances that says, yes, this did happen. Here's what you said that day, and now 6 months later you're saying something different.
Do you have to tell the alleged victim that we are videotaping you?
There's no requirement for that. As you know, the police department recently got videos in their cars, which is way, way overdue. But of course, that's more for stuff out on the street
DWI,
and stuff like that. However, in this case, they can go to any person, any witness, and film them right there. Now, it's a start. Now, only 78 cameras is not going to equip the whole police department. But I was lucky enough to get this grant through the governor's office and the Texas Council on Family Violence that helped us get this grant. And it's a great start for it, because now officers will be able to say, well, I'm sorry, the ladies won't be able to say, well, I didn't tell the officer that. They changed my story. And it didn't happen this way, because we have it right there at the scene of crime. And this is something the commissioner probably didn't have when he was on the force. And the frustration is there for everybody, because every Monday we call cases to court and people don't show up for court to do this. One other thing I should point out, for years, even when I was first assistant, I started a program called the Domestic Violence 101 class. If a lady comes to my office and wants to drop charges, a lady or a man, whoever it is, wants to drop charges, they can't just automatically drop the charges. They have to go through a program that we put on in conjunction with the women's shelter here in town, and they come and educate these women about this cycle of violence and tell them how they're and what programs they are, like the women's shelter and stuff, to get out of this cycle.
You know, the sad thing, Joe, that a lot of these people that grew up in this environment don't feel that they're being abused, don't feel that they're victims. You know, there's an abuser and an abuse.
And there's bilateral abuse,
Right.
where they both have
Sure.
been conditioned. He's asleep, I'll whack him with a broom.
Yeah.
He wakes up, hits me on the back of the head, and the children are watching all that.
And that's what's the bad part about it. The children are watching, the children are hearing, the children are there, and after a while they start growing older and say, well, my dad did it, why can't I? My mom did it, why can't I? It's okay, they're still together, and then so I think that and people out there, I know there's some people out there that want to cry out for help, but they don't know how.
Or people that have
they're
had,
afraid.
or people that have had that in the past. No one is perfect.
Right.
No relationship is perfect. Even verbal abuse in front of can escalate and lead to
This
that.
is why it's so important that we get as many people as possible to get those that are drop out at one point or another, get their GED, get an education. That way you can support your family, be a productive member of society, and you don't have to go through this cycle.
Because financial stuff, when there's no money at home and no one's happy, it escalates. The tensions. We see education, finance, it all ties in together. They're worried about finances, they're arguing, they're escalating. Those things, when a woman's pregnant, the statistics are there, violence escalates. I mean, so there's a lot of factors that play into it.
And I might be wrong, Mark. Maybe Mark can answer better than I can, but I think if you look at the statistics of somebody being abused in violence, domestic violence, is usually more of a person that doesn't have an education, has no options whatsoever except stay in the house, and they feel like if we take away the other person, the abuser, then where am I going to go? Where am I going to do? Where am I going to get money to survive? You know what I'm saying? I think this is an issue. This is very important. And I might be wrong on this, Mark, but I think that's one of the biggest problems we have.
I think the controlling of the finances, controlling of mail. We've brought on a women's shelter. You've worked with them for years.
Sure. Well, one other thing I want to piggyback on what the commissioner said, I have to argue with you a little bit in that it's not just a cultural thing. It goes across all stratas of our
So you're
society.
seeing rich people
You see
too.
rich
Everybody,
people,
yeah.
poor people, race, gender. It doesn't matter. You
I
can
agree
have
with that. I
abuse
agree
of,
with that.
in on Ocean Drive, and you can have it on the west side.
Yeah, no,
you can have it in Hispanics. You can have it in Anglos. It's across
We've
the
seen
board.
prominent people on Ocean Drive get and you locked them up too. So it's across the board where they had to make the arrest, bring them in, and whatever happened in the courts later. But it's not just saying, well, he's only picking on the people on the west
My
side.
point is, you just can't pigeonhole one certain slice of society.
I got
It goes
you.
across all slices of society.
And-
But he's right when he talks about education. The first thing we need to do is recognize we have a problem in this community. The second thing is we have to have programs developed to do that, like the women's shelter and other thing. If in my office, for example, if you get in some type of abusive relationship and you're prosecuted for that, we have a program called BIP, which is a Batters Intervention Program, which is designed specifically for men to educate them about how you shouldn't beat up your wives or your girlfriends. The Domestic Violence 101 case situation is a great way to reach out and bring community members like the women's shelter, bring these women and say, there is an alternative. You don't have to stay there and get beaten. And I guarantee you, Joe, for every case we have where a woman finally picks up that phone and calls 911, I bet you it's happened before, right? And like he says, these officers go to a certain address, they've been there before for domestic violence calls.
And ladies and gentlemen, you see how highly charged this issue is. I wish we could do a 2-hour program on this. And I really want, do you have any video and stuff we can add to this, that maybe short clips, things that you show maybe in the BIP program that maybe Dave and I could put on?
I'd have to go check with the probation department.
Anytime this year we can add it on. We got a couple of minutes left. Closing arguments from either one of you. Commissioner?
Well, I just think that education is the answer. And not always the answer, because even educated people, there's violence in the education family. I mean, it's just, but education is very important. You got to educate, like Mark said, educate the abuser, educate the victim, educate, what everybody, what it is and what you need to do and how to do things. And I think that more people that get education, either through college academics or vocational, have a better chance of surviving and not going through an abusive relationship.
The bottom line with me, Joe, is this. Don't let it just go by. Don't let it just keep happening. Do something about it, whether it's getting involved or talking to your priest at church, your best friend, some organization, some social organization, anything. Don't let it keep happening, because unfortunately, being a prosecutor for 28 years, I've seen it escalate to where the woman doesn't make it out alive. We've had some recent cases of that where the violence has escalated and the person shoots the other person and murders them. I don't want to see it go that far.
Shoot the whole family, or they shoot the whole family.
Saving lives,
There's just all kinds of stuff in that. So that's what we're trying to stop.
When you get in that voting box, guys, whether it's this year, next year, when you get up there, you remember who comes out on these shows, and you remember why you pull the lever. Because it's not, when you say, who does it matter who serves as a district attorney? What does it matter who serves as a commissioner? It matters a whole bunch. Because these guys don't have to come out here and take the time at their lunch hour to come out and talk about this stuff. When you have commitment to the community, your leaders matter when you pull that lever. And I want to thank District Attorney MArk Skurka for coming out, and Commissioner Joey Gonzalez 24/7. JAG. So thank you. JAG. I never get it right. Thank you guys for coming out. What about the plug for, wait a minute, Dave. We've got our friend, and I'm looking forward to it, Carlos Valdez, our ex-district attorney, April 3rd at the Omni at 6:30.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. The lovely Clarissa Serna is going to be there.
We are really pleased to have her as a mistress of ceremony. She will be organizing the rowdy people.
Why do you have to say
speakers.
mistress and get my heart racing, man? Come on.
We know Joe's one of the roasters here. That's going to be one of the roasters. Sheriff Kalen, myself, and David Loeb will all be roasting there.
Carlos Valdez, my God, my dream come true.
I got a whole list on Carlos.
I can't wait to hear what Joe says about Carlos. It'll be a good time, and it's for a worthy cause.
I'm bringing all the 8-liner people. I'm bringing them to protest the roast.
I'll give you a couple of things I have in the closet about Carlos.
Please, any dirty secrets we have on Carlos, but he's running unopposed. He does have a candidate, right? Yes. But he's smart. He's getting a roast. He says, get it all out now, Yeah.
Joe, I want your viewers to realize this is for the Child Advocacy Center. It does really good work on community. They help the law enforcement interview any child that's been physically abused or sexually abused, and help the police department put their cases together, and also work with the district attorney's office. I can't say enough about how well they help this community. If anybody's wants to get involved in working with them or sponsoring this fundraiser, this roast we're having, they can contact coastalbendcac.org or just call the center themselves. We'd love to see them out there, because it'll be a fun time with Carlos in everybody's sight.
And just kidding, we love Carlos. He's a good guy, Carlos Valdez. And you and he did one of the trials of the century with that cowardly shooting of Selena. That's just one of many that you all worked together over 28 years.
And you might hear a little insight about how Carlos was during that trial and what he did during that trial that probably didn't make it into his book.
Well, we need to do that. We're going to talk about his book. He's got to put it out at Barnes & Noble. I'm waiting, and that's another roasting thing. Anything you want to burn Carlos on before we leave?
Well, I know I saw Carlos the other night, and he couldn't stay very long. We were at a banquet, and he ate and he ran, and I said, Carlos, where are you going? I said, I got to get out of here. I got to go back. And I found out that he left because the suit he was had on, Joe, belonged to the Salvation Army. He just borrowed it.
Oh, man. Salvation Army, huh? Yeah. All right. Well, I've seen his suits. They're pretty fire retardant. I mean, we already started. Well, we're out of time. We'll continue burning you at the roast, Carlos, but we love you. Carlos Valdez, and it's for the Children's Advocacy Center. It's for a good cause.
It is.
And we'll put up some information on Children's Advocacy Center. Remember, get involved. And thank these gentlemen again, District Attorney Mark Skurka and Nueces County Commissioner 24/7 JAG, Joe A. Gonzalez. And we're out of time. Thank you, and God bless.